The three-time national champion started racing mountain bikes at the age of 13 and racing professionally in 2010. Neko has raced for big teams such as Castard Scott, a team that included well-known rider Brendan Fairclough. He later moved to the YT Mob, sharing the team with fellow American Aaron Gwin. After 2 years on the team, both riders moved to Intense Factory Racing. 3 years of racing with Intense Cycles, he decided to take all his knowledge and experience and set out to build and race his own downhill bike for the 2022 World Cup downhill season. With the expertise and help from iconic frame fabricator Frank the Welder, his initial goal was to design something simple that gave him the ability to modify the kinematics the way he wanted. The first prototype frame was a 4x rocker design that featured a standard main pivot which Neko named Prototype 0A and Prototype 0B for the high pivot version. On the 0A prototype, high forces put through the rocker linkage caused the original bolts to bend. 12.9 steel grey bolts were used to fix this. The bike used 6061 aluminium tubing and was heat treated to T6. The geometry looked like this: a 27.5 inch rear wheel, a 29 inch front wheel, a 64 degrees head angle, 455mm chainstays, and a 475mm reach. Neko aimed for progressivity, and that's what he got. The low anti-rise caused the suspension to extend on rearward braking and allowed it to feel more active and ride higher under braking. It had 10 degrees of pedal kickback in the 3614 gear. To reduce this, an O-chain was fitted. Moving on to Prototype 0B, the high pivot version. Neko decided he wanted to test and try a high pivot system. The aim was to keep the bike exactly the same, only modifying it with a high pivot. An improved 7075 rocker arm was made for improved strength over the 6061 aluminium version. The pivot yoke that holds the idler was also CNC'd. This bike had 28% progressivity. Neko explained he would have preferred it to be 30%, but didn't want to change it too much for comparison. Anti-rise on this version was a little higher, but that was expected, with the high pivot being higher above the bottom bracket. This version only had 1.7 degrees of pedal kickback. The high pivot version features a 27.5 inch rear wheel, a 29 inch front wheel, a 63 degree head angle, a 475mm reach, and 450mm chainstays, 5mm less than the first version. After testing the high pivot, Neko preferred the first design and said he felt like it was the best balance between the two. A new one-piece rocker link was created by Cascade Components with the aim to help with rigidity. The new rocker links were a lot larger than the original versions. The only geometry change from the first prototype was the reach going from 475mm to 480mm. As things started to become more refined, the bike saw smaller changes. After testing and racing, it showed signs of cracking, which was thought to be the cause of the rocker pivot and the main pivot pulling high forces in opposite directions. Also, a new gusset was designed to solve a cracking issue. After more testing, it was decided to take out the rocker link brace for more flexibility. The one-piece rocker arm he used on the previous prototype was too rigid and felt like the rear wheel couldn't keep traction. After some trouble with aligning pivots and the brake mount, Neko decided to design and test a carbon rear triangle. Although he'd done some back-to-back testing, he didn't notice much difference between the carbon and aluminium triangles. However, carbon fibre was the obvious winner due to the unsprung mass and improved alignment between the pivots. Neko was curious about ride quality and wanted to try a steel frame. Through mutual friends and a few conversations, Neko partnered up with Scottish brand Cotic Bikes to build the front triangle. The idea was to keep everything the same but build it in steel, which Cotic Bikes specialises in. After a few prototypes, many mistakes and a lot of testing sessions, he reverted back to the aluminium frame. It was decided the bike was ready to bring to the market. In November 2023, Neko's frame was available for pre-order. In January 2024, Neko proudly launched his Frameworks racing team. Angel Suarez, Asa Vermont and Neko himself would be racing in the team for the 2024 season. Neko's next project was to test a bonded version of the frame for better strength to weight ratio. He stated the front triangle weighs 373 grams less. The frames are bonded with Loctite adhesive cured at room temperature. The new version was finished just in time for the launch of the new limited edition Fox factory fork in gold.